Hi parents, it's me, Miss Arnold. Going to talk to you today about our MAP benchmark. If you've been with us for a few years, we give this 3 times a year, and it is time for our fall benchmark. This will let us know exactly where our kids are, so it will help us guide our instruction between now and in November when we give the winter assessment. So first of all, if you didn't know, MAP stands for Measure of Academic Progress. And NWEA, that's just the company that puts this benchmark out, and it stands for Northwest Education Association. So, a little trivia. Some more acronyms to remember. So first, what is MAP? Okay, it's a computer-based adaptive benchmark test. So adaptive meaning when the student first sits down to take the test, they get a question at their level. They get it right, it gets harder. They get it right, it gets harder. And it's going to get harder until they get it wrong, and then it gets easier. And then if they get that wrong too, it'll get easier. And then it'll get harder if they get it right. So we have this whole up and down kind of thing about level of question until that up and down motion kind of gets smaller and smaller and smaller and evens out at what we call their RIT score. We call it Ready for Instruction Today. That's not technically what it stands for, but that lets us know what they're ready to learn. And each test has about 40 to 53 questions. Just depends on the test. It depends on the student, if they're getting them right or wrong or what have you. And they generally take about 45 to 60 minutes. The reading ones, the passages for the older kids are really long, or they can get really long, and that might take a little longer for them if they're really taking their time in reading. If students are slower with their math skills and their math facts and just take their time and work it all out, it's going to take them longer. So about 45 to 60 minutes, though, is average. And like I said, it measures what the kids know right now. So if they get those questions right, we know those are the things they know. If they get the questions wrong, those are the things they don't know. So that tells us what they're ready to learn right then, where we need to take them. And then it also helps us measure growth over time. So we give it 3 times a year. So we look at their score in the fall, the winter, the spring, and we make sure they're growing how we want them to. This is a nationally normed test. So we know the expected growth for each particular student, and we compare that to what it should be. And if it's what it should be, great. We know we're doing the right things. If not, we know we need to kind of adjust. So we look at their academic, what they know right now, and how much they're growing. So they might not be exactly where they need to be, but if they're growing how they need to, that's good too. So why do we give MAP? Kind of said that a little bit, but we use it to individualize instruction for each student. To plan whole class and small group instruction. So if the whole class did really well on a particular skill set, the teacher knows they don't have to spend as much time in class on that with the whole group. They could do it in small groups with the students that didn't quite get it yet, or they can do other things with their small groups. So small groups might change after we give this benchmark, depending on what the results look like. So we can group people together that need similar things and use our time more efficiently. We set class goals. We set student goals. It's always good to have a goal to work towards. And like I said in the last slide, we use it to make sure kids are growing academically and growing at the level we want them to be and growing as much as we want them to be. And then also to identify students that need extra support. So we look at this, and if they're in a certain percentile or lower, we look at them for our student support team and put some intervention in place to help them get out of that lower 20th percentile. So taking MAP remotely. So first, before I go into this section, I want to again say, you probably already read it in my email, but I want to again say that I really highly can't highly recommend it enough that they come on site to take this test. It'll be a nice quiet test session, so they can focus. We know this system. If something goes wrong, we can fix it real quick. Won't even matter. And then we'll also know that while I know you guys mean the best, but sometimes we help a little bit too much, we'll know that the scores we get are really an accurate picture of what the kids can do by themselves. So, but taking map remotely, so everybody, whether you take it remotely or not, needs to schedule their sessions, and that's provided in the email as well. But if you are doing it remotely, and if they're doing it here, but we do it for them, you're going to log into test.map.nwea.org. And sometimes you'll get a pop-up blocker, and if you do, just press allow, refresh the page, you'll be good to go, and you'll see a page that looks like this. So the first thing you do here, the teacher or whoever is proctoring the test will give you and the student the session name and the session password. So you type both of those in. Be careful, because if you don't get it right, you won't be able to go to the next screen. So once you put those two things in, you're going to press the blue arrow, and you're going to get to a screen like this. The first bar is a drop-down menu. You're going to find your student's name, or they can find it themselves. Again, let them do this as much as independent as possible. And then the second one should be pre-filled, so it should already say the test they're going to take. So this would be the test that our second graders through fifth graders take for math. Once those two things are there, you're going to press the blue arrow, and you're going to get to a screen like this. It says, is this correct? So we're going to check the information. You're going to make sure your student's name is there, the test is there, the test session name you typed in the first screen will be there, school, their grade level, and their birth year. If their birth year is wrong, it doesn't matter. That just means we have it in the system wrong, and it's good for us to know, but it's not going to affect anything. But we do want to make sure they're in the right grade level. If all that information is correct, you can press yes, and then you're going to get to a screen like this with a little paper clip at the top. It says, please wait for your proctor to confirm your information. So once everyone is at this page, the teacher then goes on their side and presses confirm. And once they press confirm, a blue arrow is going to show up. So same page, but now we see a blue arrow, and you can press a blue arrow to start the test. And you take the test at your own pace. Remember, 45 to 60 minutes, but it's not timed, so each testing session is going to be 2 hours. If they need more than 2 hours, we'll pause their test, and they can finish it at a later time. So not a time test. So we encourage everyone to take their time, read everything, work out all their math problems, because again, that's the only way we're going to know what they really know. Okay, so if any of these things happen, you need to contact the proctor. So you'll be in a Zoom meeting with the proctor, the teacher, at the time that you're taking the test as well, so the teacher can see the student. But let them know if you have any technical difficulties, if the student needs to take a break that's longer than 10 minutes, we need to pause the test. And then when the student finishes, just let the proctor know as well. They'll probably want you to read a score off the screen. And any other questions, you can always contact the proctor through the chat on Zoom. All right, so I'm going to go through what some of the questions look like. There's a variety of different questions. It's not all multiple choice, but that is one type. So this one on the top right is an example from the kindergarten and first grade test. Notice there's not a question written there. So kindergarten and first grade, every question has these little icons, these speaker icons, and it reads the question to you. So this might say, click on the shape that is a sphere, and then they would click on this one. So I don't know what that question is, but I just made that up. So that might be the question. So anytime you see a little icon like that, if you are working with a kindergartner or first grader, they need to click on it. It'll read the question to them. It'll read the answer choices to them. So I really encourage making sure they click on each of these little speakers before they answer the question. And that is one thing as a parent at home, you are certainly able to do. Tell them, and I tell my kinders and first graders when I'm proctoring here on site, I make sure they're clicking all of those speakers so that they're reading it and they're really understanding what the question's asking. This one is an example from our 2nd through 8th grade. So this one is a longer reading passage, and notice there's a scroll bar there. I wanted to point that out because some of the passages don't fit on the whole screen. You need to scroll down so they can read it all. And then there's a multiple choice question. Then we have a drag and drop. So this kindergarten, first grade example, again, you see our speaker icons. This will read the question to them. This will say short pencils. This will say long pencils. And they have to drag and drop the long pencils over here, the short pencils over here. If they have trouble dragging and dropping, help them. That's fine. But do not say anything. They need to point to where they want it. They want the pencil drug. You don't need to say, oh, does this one go here? Don't lead them. Just tell them to point and you'll put it there. Then this one is a drag and drop. So this one you have to fill in the list of steps. So here's your choices down here. They would click on whatever choice they want, drag it, and put it in the blank. This one, they need to click on an answer. They didn't have a younger example of this. This is only on the older test. So it says choose a sentence in the passage that tells how bats are different from birds. So they would click on the sentence that they thought answered that question, which would be this last one. So they will click on that. There are choose all that apply. So there are questions that have multiple answers. So this says choose all the rectangles. There's 2 correct answer choices here. So again, make sure that they are listening to that question or reading the question correctly. To go to the next question, there's always going to be an arrow at the bottom of the screen to the right, and it's going to be a blue arrow. It won't show up until they answer the question. And if it's not shown up, if it doesn't show up, it might be like that last one that says click all that apply, and they know they didn't click enough, so it's not going to be blue. It's going to be gray. So that might be something that you notice. But that's the button you click to go to the next question. Never, ever, ever click exit test at the top. That's a no-no. Okay, we're not going to exit until it's time, or if a student runs out of time before they exit the test, the teacher needs to do something on their end. So never, ever, ever click exit test unless the teacher tells you to. Going to go through the menu bar to let you know what all these little icons mean. So first, there is a zoom feature. It makes the font smaller or larger. I don't recommend this. Because if you have it zoomed in, you might not see everything in the screen that's part of the question. So I recommend just leaving it at 100. And then you see everything you need to see and there's nothing missing. Then we have a highlighter. So in longer reading passages, students can highlight. So I highlighted an example there. And it's recommended for reading passages. Okay. Then the next one is the eraser. So it would erase the highlighter marks if you want to get rid of them. If they highlighted something and they're like, oh, never mind, don't want to highlight that, we can just erase it. This next one are guidelines, and it helps students focus in on one line of text at a time, and then they drag it to the next line, and the next line, helps them focus on one line at a time. And sometimes that helps students when they're reading. The next one is a notepad. It's an alternative to having physical pencil and paper. I don't really recommend it, but if the kids want to use it, it's there. Then the next one, this will help you cancel out answer choices, eliminate answer choices. So like on a math problem or a reading problem, if you're like, oh, no, I know that's not the answer, you click on this, all these little X boxes will show up on the left, and you can just click on those to eliminate answers. Then the last one, calculator. So that obviously is only on the math test. And it doesn't show up for all problems. It only shows up for the problems that allow a calculator. So if it's asking you to do 4 times 3 and say the answer, it's not going to give you a calculator because it wants to know if you know what 4 times 3 is, or the student knows what 4 times 3 is. But on a question like this, where the point of this question is how to read a chart, you can use a calculator. All right, so kind of talked about adaptive questions already. If a student gets a question incorrect, they're going to get an easier question. They get it correct, they get a harder question. And all students will see questions they don't know how to answer, because when they get it right, it gets harder, and it's going to get harder until they can't answer it anymore. So we tell kids that, So they know they're going to see questions they don't know how to answer, and that is okay. All we ask them to do is try their best. They don't need to take forever and try to figure it out if they know I haven't learned this yet. Especially our older kids, they're very aware, like, I haven't learned this yet. I don't know how to do this. Then read it, make your best guess, use what you do know, and then move on. It doesn't count against them if they get a question wrong, so no harm. So testing expectations. So the proctors will communicate date and time, so they'll remind you of your date and time of testing, okay? They're going to share how to communicate with them during testing, which is going to be through a Zoom meeting. And then they'll communicate the results with you and your student after testing and let you know what they mean. Parents, if you're doing this at home, you'll make sure that the students have a quiet, comfortable space to complete their test. You're going to make sure they have paper and pencil for their math test because they're going to have questions that they need to work out. Encourage them to do their best so that we know what they know. Help students stay focused. They can take breaks if they need it. But please do not help students in any way other than helping younger kids with the mouse. That's fine. Reminding them to click on the speakers. That's fine. Okay. But other than that, they need to do the test as independently as possible, because then that lets us know what they can do independently and where we need to start. And the students are encouraged them to take their test, read all the questions and passages very carefully, try their best on every question, and show their math work. So that's a little bit about MAP testing. If you have any questions, please let me know. Let your child's teacher know. We're here to help. So this is the first time we've given this remotely, so it will be a learning experience for everyone, like everything has been so far. So in advance, I thank you for your patience. But again, I can't say it enough. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you come on site to take this test. It's a 2-hour testing window. And there's going to be less than 10 kids in each class. They'll be 6 feet apart. They'll be wearing masks. We'll be disinfecting everything between sessions to make sure that everybody is safe while they come here. But I think it would just give the kids a better testing experience and the teachers better testing results so that they have the most appropriate information and accurate information to use to plan. But now's the time to schedule. So go to either link in the email and schedule. If you have questions about scheduling, let me know. And we'll talk to you later. Go Mustangs!